Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the second half of experiment number 5. And the second half of experiment number 5 deals with a system rather than just the car itself. Now we're going to look at the system and pulley as well, because that's going to kind of tie into our next segment or our next experiment. Number 1, choose a hard flat surface at least 80 centimeters long and 80 centimeters off the ground. And now these science tables that we have in the lab are in fact 80 centimeters off the ground, and they're quite long. They're upwards of 10, 12 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that part, and then I tape 3 pieces of 8x5 or 8.5 by 11 paper end to end lengthwise. And so when you do that, that's what it's going to look like. Okay, so we have 3 pieces. Number 3, tape the pieces of the paper from step 2 on the surface chosen in step 1, so that the end, or one end, of the 33-inch long paper is even with the edge of the surface you've chosen. So I'm going to line this up with the edge of my surface here, and then I'm going to tape it into place. That way it won't move when we're doing the experiment. Number 4, working on the same end of the paper as in step 3, use a straight edge to mark a line 10 centimeters from the end of the paper and surface. Label this mark end. Okay, so I'm going to grab my seamstress measuring tape here. And it was called that because it's nice and easy to measure around people's waists and that sort of thing. The other tapes aren't really that good for it. And so I'm going to set this right at the edge of the paper and the surface here, and I'm going to mark back 10 centimeters. Okay, and then I'm going to label that end. Then it says make it 6 additional lines 10 centimeters apart. 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, 30, 40, 50, 60, back from the end mark. So we're going to set it at the end mark, and then we're going to go backwards. Okay, then we're going to go backwards 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters, and make our marks. And I've already done this, but you'll just come back here and make sure that you're nice and level with it and that sort of thing. And we are. I typically, when I'm using this, I will actually start at something like 2 centimeters, because that way I know that I don't have to deal with the front of the tape measure. So then I'll go 12, 22, 32, that sort of thing. And it just makes a nice cleaner measurement. And so I'll go through and I'll mark each one of these and make sure to label them. This is the 10 centimeter mark. This is the 20 centimeter mark, that sort of thing. And make sure that you're putting in just how far it is too, and an arrow right along with it. And the note there mentions don't measure 10, then go back and measure 10, because the successive errors in your measurements will cause everything to kind of fall apart. Number 6, use the tape to attach one of the pulleys using experiment 3 balancing forces to the edge of the table closest to the end mark from step 4. And the reason I had to put this on is you might be using a table that's not very long, and so we want to make sure that you're not talking about the other end. We actually want this end closest to the edge of the table here. And so I've already kind of set this up so that I could save a little time. And so I'm going to go ahead and take this pulley and tape it down. Remember, we bent one of the hooks, and so that's the hook that I'm using to tape down. There we are. Number 7, it says choose or make a piece of string between 70 and 80 centimeters long. You don't want it too long, because then it could fall to the ground while the car is still moving. You don't want it too short, because then the car won't have full motion. At one end, attach 5 paper clips. And so I did that. At one end of my string, I attached 5 paper clips. And then I should take my digital scale here and measure my paper clips. And so it reads 2.6 grams. And so I would record that as 2.6 plus or minus 0.05 grams. And that would be the mass of my 5 paper clips. Number 8, run the end of the string opposite the paper clips through the pulley's frame, up and over the pulley, and tape it to car 1. Okay, so I bring it up through the pulley, I make sure the string runs over the pulley, and then I tape it to car 1. And now it doesn't matter really which car you call car 1, just that you tape it there. Okay, and I'm going to tape it to the top. Actually, I'm going to tape it slightly down a little bit onto the hood because of, looks like the hood's just about in line with my pulley. Okay, so now, using the digital scale again, make sure, or measure the mass of your toy car. And make sure that you lift the paper clips so that nothing but the mass of the car with the tape is being measured. And so now I have my paper clips in hand so that nothing's pulling on the car. And then I'll set the car on the scale here, and I get 44.3 grams. So I'll mark down 44.3 plus or minus 0.05 grams. Number 10, during the procedure, make sure that the paper clips fall freely. No rubbing or bumping for the entire travel of the car. As you hang these and dangle these off of your table, they're going to kind of want to swing back and forth. Just make sure they don't hit anything when they do that. Make sure your car doesn't roll over any tape, dirt, or anything else that can skew the results. That would put in kind of a false sense of friction that we're trying to measure here. If you have any of these issues, then it's up to you to change it as you should. And that's the second half of experiment number 5.